Hi everyone, thanks for joining me live or on the replay. If you're watching the replay, let me know. I am so excited to talk about this topic today. It's something that I get asked to talk about a lot. It's something that I've had experience of myself and is something that I also get come up a lot with clients as well. So this is something that I wanted to talk about, and this kind of sits underneath a lot of the issues that I see around alignment and a lot of the things I see around blocks and new awarenesses coming in for our businesses as well. So I'm just going to check I'm just going to check on the laptop now. I've got the tech up and running again. Just want to check I can see myself live. And this is also your, I can see myself live. So this is also your opportunity to ask me any questions today as well, any questions that you've got. So I've had some questions come through on Instagram already, so thank you for those. And if you have any questions after today's live as well, just pop them in comments and I will come back to those after the session today. Okay, I'm just checking we are all set up. So I want to talk to you today about trauma bonds, twin flames, and how this all links to our alignment and to our businesses as well. Now, I would say 95% of the clients that I speak to, generally who come to me for business coaching, come to me for some kind of energy alignment, what usually we end up doing is we get into relationship coaching. So this is one of the reasons for me doing this session today, to talk about this, because what I find is underneath our businesses, underneath what our perceived blocks might be, underneath our perceived alignment, there's always these types of relationships kind of brewing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about those today. And I'm going to start with a bit of a story of my own experience of a trauma bond relationship. And let me know if this resonates. Let me know, share with me if anyone is going through this at the moment. So my experience of a trauma bond relationship was very intense. Now, if you have had a trauma bond, you will know, or if you're going through this right now, you will know it is an intense awakening experience, and it is very intense. And there are these, there's this kind of push-pull dynamic with these relationships as well. And it can be very triggering. It can be like really intense highs, really intense lows, triggers. It can trigger anxious avoidance patterns as well. So you might even find in these types of relationships that people will become avoidant and will leave, and then we'll come back, and we'll leave and we'll come back. So you kind of get this anxious avoidance dance going on with this as well. Now, the thing that's really important, which is one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today, is that misconception of this feeling, of this push-pull feeling. And for a lot of us that have maybe, have had anxiety or nervous system dysregulation in the past, this feels really like, on some level, this might sound really weird, but on some level this feels desirable to us. We love it. We actually love, although in the moment, having this kind of push-pull and chaos type effect in a relationship can feel really hectic in the moment. But on some level, subconsciously, we have a safety with that feeling. So if we're somebody who if you've had anxiety in the past, and there's some level of nervous system dysregulation, then these types of relationships will start to make us feel that push-pull. Now, this is the important part, which is going to be potentially an unpopular opinion, which I'm gonna just speak openly about, and this is just my view and my experience and my learning of going through this. Now, when I was going through this type of relationship, I went and Googled it because I was like, I've never experienced anything like this before. What on earth is going on? I was going through a huge up level at the time, and yeah, I was like, what is going on? Like, why this, like, such this intense experience? And I Googled it, and I ended up deep into the spiritual community with this stuff, who told me that it was a twin flame relationship. And everything that I read about what twin flame relationships were was describing this experience I was having. And there were things in there like, you know, this intense push-pull is something that is meant to happen, and, you know, one person's meant to run away, and then when you work on yourselves, usually it's the female, like, working, or the more feminine energy working on themselves, then the divine masculine comes back in. Now, this is what I feel can be really damaging if, you know, as I've shared with you before, when I went through my awakening and when I came into the spiritual community, I was desperately looking for answers. And now there's so many people out there, like, truly believing that these trauma bond experiences are, like, so magical, and they can be magical in terms of the healing, and I'll talk about that, the healing that happens. But yeah, yet again, I ended up, like, looking for answers, looking at readings and all of these things, and ultimately it was a trauma bond. And so yeah, so I want to speak out a little bit about the spiritual community today and say, like, this is not, if you're having this intense push-pull, it is about both parties needing to work on themselves. Of course, we have free will, and it may be that one party may not choose to work on themselves, in which case then there's a place there for boundaries. This is always about coming back to you. So if you're going through this right now, or if you've been through this experience, this intense push-pull and this triggering, this is all about things that are inside of you, things that you need to do shadow work on. And if you are going through this experience, then you are lucky in a way. It might not feel like it at the time, because you are being shown what you need to work on for your growth and for your evolution. So for me, I had just come out of a 14-year relationship. I was going through a new layer of awakening, and I went through this trauma bond experience, and it felt really triggering at times. There were highs, there were lows. There were times that were almost almost like, I can't really describe it, like almost like abusive kind of level dynamic as well. And this is another thing, because this kind of twin flame mythology will tell you, like, oh, it's really magical, they'll come back to you, just keep going, just keep working on yourself. And that can be really, really damaging, because we have to remember there's two people here who have free will and choice about what they do. I'm just going to check my notes to make sure I'm covering off everything. So this is always about coming back to you. And if you're going through this experience right now, what I want to say is, whatever label you give this experience, if you're fully, like, embedded in this twin flame concept, then of course it is about working on you, but both partners need to work on themselves. And if one partner is not willing to work on themselves, then this is all about self-love for you, and this is just about them mirroring parts of you, and therefore about your evolution. So you can kind of look at it like, right, imagine, okay, I'm going to draw a lovely diagram. So imagine this is you, with a very wonky head, and this is your energetic field, and all of your, like, childhood wounds, your traumas, they're all forming these little holes in your energetic field. Okay, here's all your childhood wounds and your traumas, all existing energetically. Hey Michelle, thanks for watching. So these are all your wounds, and you're walking around with these wounds that need healing. And your twin flame trauma bond comes in over here hello. And they start to trigger you. So let's say this is Jane, let's say this is John. So suddenly Jane feels this absolutely intense attraction to John, and she's like, oh my gosh, like I've never felt this attraction before ever. Like this is completely new. It might be that this person is quite spiritual. It's like, oh my God, Jane's like, oh my God, I have found a spiritual man. Oh my God, like this is incredible. This is amazing. And actually, what is happening is John is a mirror, and these wounds in Jane, John, it becomes an energetic match for those wounds. So this is why it feels good at times, and it feels like we can mistake this trigger here, we can mistake this feeling for love and chemistry, especially if we've had nervous system dysregulation, because that feels safe to us, that feels like love to us. So we can mistake that as love, we can mistake that as chemistry, but really what's happening is they're coming in and their energy is matching the vibration of our wound, okay? And this is where it starts to trigger us, because they're coming in, they're vibrationally matching our wound, we get triggered, we might say something to them, and this is where that push-pull dynamic really starts to go, and you know, especially if we've got a really wonky, wobbly head, ignore my drawings. So yeah, this kind of trigger, this is how it happens. So that's the wound. So what this is actually telling us, what this situation is actually telling us, is showing you this. I'm not very good at drawing mirror image, but it's showing you that wound. It's saying, oh, what are they triggering in you? There's the wound that needs healing. When you heal that wound, you will raise in vibration. Okay, so for me, this wound was ultimately about self-love and worthiness. And this was the reason why I left my marriage, because it was all about me stepping into that place of worthiness, into that space of self-love. And then the universe went, no, you've still got a wound there. We need you to heal this. So we're going to bring you this person who is going to love bomb you and trigger the hell out of you to get you to heal this wound. So this is how this works on an energetic level. Okay, and what happened for me was this actually became really toxic, this connection, and it got to a point where I had to choose myself, and I healed this wound, and just by choosing myself and actually setting a boundary in this situation, and stepping into my divine feminine, was how I healed this wound. And I chose myself over this chaos, over this perceived love and chemistry. I chose myself, and putting that in, and this wound was healed. That connection went. But it was a period of time of like, oh, heal this wound, oh, next trigger, heal this wound, next trigger. So this was kind of an ongoing evolution, but eventually I healed all the associated wounds that were a vibrational match for that person, and this is when I was this, just to give you the level of self-love I was at in that moment, which is totally a reminder even now where I need to go back to. I was dressing up, I was putting makeup on to go to the beach, I was taking myself out on dates, I was taking myself out for lunch, I was dressing up, wearing incredible lingerie just for me. I was my own best lover, okay? So usually this stuff is about self-love, it's about choosing ourselves, it's about giving ourselves what we need. So this will also start to show us, start to kind of show us our gaps of our needs, and how our needs are not being met here. It's all about giving them to ourselves. And when I did this, which leads me on to a question I was asked actually, when I did this is when I met Coral. This is when a soulmate dropped in, because I was in my highest vibration. She'd also been doing a lot of work on herself after her experiences of trauma bonds as well. And we were both in that higher vibration, and we became a vibrational match. And we developed a connection that was it was more of a slow burn, it was more of a gentle connection. There wasn't that immediate, instant instant like chemistry, attraction back and forth. There are of course triggers, and we trigger each other all the time. Well, not all the time, but we have to, we do get triggered, and we do have to work through that, and we work through that. We go off separately and work through that, and we work through that together as well. And it's all about that kind of nervous system regulation in that process. So one of the questions that I got asked when I said I was going to talk about this topic is, what is the difference between twin flames and soulmates? And I believe, this is just my experience and my experience of my clients, I believe that the difference is a twin flame is like a slap from the universe. So that's what mine was. It was a universal slap from the universe to say, you need to awaken, you need to align, you need to be in a space of self-love right now. Whereas a soulmate is more of a gentle connection, and more of a connection of like when you're in alignment, they drop in because they're in alignment for you, rather than something that is triggering. So, a soulmate can be, can start off as a trauma bond, and you heal that trauma bond and you both work on yourselves. It can become a soulmate connection. And this whole like triggering twin flames, I'm sure there's twin flames that have, that have turned it into that connection, but both partners need to be willing to work on themselves. And the link into our businesses. So I'm just going to take a sip of my tea. The link into our businesses. So I remember it was 2020, and I was actually sat on a session with my business coach, and we ended up talking about my relationship. We ended up talking about sex. We ended up talking about relationships. And this is because everything energetically is linked. Our ability to receive love, even from ourselves, and our ability to receive money, and our ability to feel safe, all of this is tied up energetically. So these relationships, so when I stepped into that place of self-love, I shifted the business, I shifted my boundaries, I was able to receive on that deeper level, and I became an energetic match for the most incredible clients. So I felt my caliber of clients like shifted with that decision that I made as well. So this is linked to our businesses as well. And we can't separate the two, because if our relationships are, like if we're not working on ourselves through our triggers, through our relationships, we're then not the highest version of ourselves. So we're not like fully bringing ourselves into our business and our capacity to receive, and our capacity to receive money as well. So this is all inextricably linked. So, if you are finding there is a block with your business, and just a side point here, which I'm going to talk about as well, if you are finding there are blocks right now, like I have got a new process where we can specifically name things that need to be named to be cleared. So I can help you with that. And we need to be doing shadow work based on relationships, based on triggers, based on these trauma bonds, based on these perceived twin flame experiences that we need to really talk about. This is not chemistry and love necessarily. This is that push-pull dynamic. This is anxious avoidance. So it's all ultimately about awakening, about coming back to ourselves and being the most aligned, flourishing version of us. And these relationships are here to show us. They're here to show us our wounds. They're here to mirror them back to us. And this goes for any relationship, not just twin flames and trauma bonds, but, friends, family, like any relationships where we're having that kind of triggering experience is showing us a wound. It's showing us a shadow. And when we go and work on that, which right now, by the way, is the most crucial time to work on it, because we've got the equinox coming up. So if you do the shadow work now and do it this week and stop and give yourself some time and take responsibility, the equinox will help you to transmute that shadow and take that away when that comes. So now is the time to be doing that. So any triggers in your relationships, working through them, asking yourself how I can be my best partner right now. And I've popped the link to book a call with me in comments if you would like to apply for my one-to-one spaces. I have 2 slots opening up in August, the Soulfully Aligned method, and we can go deep into this. We can look at your relationships as triggers, as mirrors, and go deep into doing that somatic healing on your traumas and your triggers to help you be your most magnificent, abundant, flourishing self. And of course that also includes my my new clearing process as well. So if you'd like to know more on that, send me a message, book a call below, and I will speak to you all soon. And any questions at all, just pop them below and I'll come back to them afterwards. So